Why do some people build substantial passive income through legitimate partnerships, while others lose money chasing schemes that promise easy wealth through silent investing? While social media promotes secretive wealth-building strategies, the reality is that successful partnership investing requires transparency, substantial capital, and realistic expectations about both timelines and risks. Here's what most investment content won't tell you honestly. Legitimate partnership opportunities typically require significant initial investment, proper legal documentation, and years to generate meaningful returns. Most schemes promising quick wealth through silent partnerships are either fraudulent or grossly misrepresent the risks involved. Over the next few minutes, I'll reveal 7 principles about legitimate partnership investing, with emphasis on transparency and realistic expectations. The fourth principle shows why successful partnerships require openness rather than secrecy, and why honest communication protects rather than threatens your relationships. If you want honest partnership investment education without unrealistic promises, subscribe and comment "Transparent Investing" below. But that's just the beginning. What I'm about to reveal shows why the Merchants Transparent Alliance explains building legitimate partnerships rather than chasing secretive schemes. Principle 1. Legitimate business partnerships require openness. Many people pursue partnership opportunities while hiding their activities from spouses or family members, believing that financial secrecy protects their relationships from worry or conflict. You might think that keeping investment activities private until they succeed will avoid stress at home, but this secrecy often creates suspicion, erodes trust, and can lead to serious relationship problems when the truth eventually emerges. Financial secrecy typically backfires because hidden activities create anxiety and mistrust that's often worse than the original concerns about the investment decisions themselves. Let me tell you about 2 people who approached business partnerships completely differently. The secretive schemer believed that hiding financial activities from his family would protect them from worry, while he pursued various opportunity schemes. He opened separate accounts, used business addresses for mail, and convinced himself that secrecy was protective rather than deceptive. The transparent partner maintained open communication about legitimate business partnerships while keeping proper documentation and involving family in major financial decisions. She understood that trust requires honesty, and that legitimate partnerships benefit from transparency rather than secrecy. The solution involves approaching partnership opportunities with complete transparency to family members and ensuring that any partnerships you consider are legitimate businesses with proper legal documentation, regulatory compliance, and realistic timelines for returns. Here's something critical you can implement. Before considering any partnership opportunity, discuss it openly with your spouse or trusted family members. If the opportunity requires secrecy, or if you feel uncomfortable discussing it openly, this is typically a warning sign of either a questionable scheme or inappropriate financial behavior. The mindset shift needed is understanding that legitimate partnerships strengthen rather than threaten relationships when handled transparently. Financial secrecy usually indicates either involvement in questionable activities or unhealthy approaches to relationship communication. Critical warning: most partnership opportunities that require or encourage secrecy are either fraudulent schemes or inappropriate financial arrangements that could harm both your finances and your relationships. Legitimate business partnerships involve proper legal documentation, tax reporting, and can withstand scrutiny from family members and financial professionals. If you feel compelled to hide partnership activities, this typically indicates either involvement in questionable schemes or relationship communication issues that need addressing rather than concealing. Principle 2. Research and verification prevent partnership fraud. Partnership opportunities often sound compelling when presented by persuasive people who emphasize potential returns while downplaying risks or verification requirements. You might encounter investment pitches that promise substantial passive income through exclusive partnerships, but you feel pressured to make quick decisions without adequate time to research the opportunity, verify credentials, or understand the actual business model. This pressure to act quickly often prevents proper investigation and leads people to invest in fraudulent schemes or poorly structured partnerships that result in financial losses rather than the promised returns. Let me tell you about two people who approached partnership opportunities differently. The trusting victim accepted partnership promises based on impressive presentations and personal testimonials without independently verifying the business model, financial statements, or legal structure. He relied on the promoter's word and assumed that enthusiasm and confidence indicated legitimacy. The careful investigator treated every partnership opportunity as requiring thorough verification, regardless of how convincing the presentation seemed. She researched the company's legal registration, requested audited financial statements, verified principals' backgrounds, and consulted with legal and financial professionals before making any commitments. The solution involves implementing systematic due diligence for any partnership opportunity, including verification of legal registration, financial audits, regulatory compliance, and background checks on all principals involved. However, understand that even thorough research can't eliminate all investment risks. Here's something essential you can implement. Before considering any partnership investment, verify the business registration with state authorities. Request audited financial statements from the past 3 years, and independently research the background of all principals involved. If any of these basic documents are unavailable, or the promoters discourage verification, this is a clear warning sign. The mindset shift needed is understanding that legitimate business partnerships welcome rather than discourage thorough investigation. Pressure to make quick decisions or discouragement of verification typically indicates fraudulent schemes. Critical fraud prevention. Most partnership scams rely on creating urgency that prevents proper investigation. Legitimate partnerships can withstand scrutiny and typically prefer working with investors who conduct proper due diligence. Be particularly wary of opportunities requiring secrecy, promising guaranteed returns, or pressuring quick decisions. Remember that sophisticated fraud schemes often include convincing documentation, so professional verification through lawyers or accountants familiar with partnership structures is essential for substantial investments. Principle 3. Real estate and business partnerships as legitimate options. Managing individual real estate investments requires significant time, expertise, and hands-on involvement that many people don't have or want to provide. You might be interested in real estate returns, but lack the knowledge to evaluate properties, manage tenants, handle maintenance issues, or navigate legal requirements. Meanwhile, attempting to learn these skills while working full-time often leads to poor investment decisions or neglected properties. This knowledge and time gap often leads people to either avoid real estate investing entirely or make poorly informed individual property purchases that create more problems than profits. Let me tell you about two people who approached real estate investing differently. The solo struggler attempted to manage all aspects of property investment himself, from property selection to tenant management and maintenance coordination. He spent countless hours dealing with issues outside his expertise and often made costly mistakes due to inexperience. The collaborative investor participated in legitimate real estate investment trusts, REITs, and properly structured real estate partnerships that provided professional management while allowing him to benefit from real estate returns without direct involvement in day-to-day operations. The solution involves exploring legitimate passive real estate investment options like publicly traded REITs or properly structured real estate partnerships with professional management. However, understand that these investments still carry risks, including potential losses, and typically require substantial minimum investments for private partnerships. Here's something practical you can research. Publicly traded REITs allow real estate investment starting with small amounts and provide liquidity that direct property ownership doesn't offer. For larger investments, investigate legitimate real estate partnerships with established track records, proper legal documentation, and transparent reporting. The mindset shift needed is understanding that passive real estate investing involves trade-offs. You give up control and some potential returns in exchange for professional management and reduced time commitment. However, be realistic about returns and risks rather than expecting guaranteed passive income. Critical reality check. Legitimate passive real estate investments typically require either substantial minimum investments, often $25,000 and plus for private partnerships, or accepting lower returns through publicly traded options. Most schemes promising high passive real estate returns with low minimums are fraudulent. Real estate markets can decline significantly, and even professionally managed partnerships can lose money. Passive doesn't mean risk-free, and diversification across multiple investment types usually provides better security than concentrating in real estate partnerships. Principle 4. Transparency with family about financial decisions. Balancing individual financial decision-making with relationship transparency creates tension when you want investment autonomy, but also want to maintain trust with your spouse or family. You might feel torn between making independent financial choices and avoiding conflict, or worry that discussing every investment opportunity could create. This tension often leads to either complete financial secrecy or asking permission for every financial decision, neither of which supports healthy relationship dynamics. Poor communication about financial decisions often creates more relationship problems than the actual investments themselves, as secrecy breeds suspicion, while over-consultation can create resentment about financial autonomy. Let me tell you about two people who managed financial communication differently. The financial hider kept investment activities completely secret to avoid potential conflict, using separate accounts and hiding statements. He convinced himself this protected his family from worry, but the secrecy created suspicion and trust issues that were more damaging than honest discussions about investment risks would have been. The open communicator discussed financial goals and investment principles with his family while maintaining appropriate decision-making autonomy for smaller investments. He established clear communication boundaries about what required discussion versus what fell within his individual financial discretion. The solution involves establishing transparent communication about your financial goals and investment philosophy, while agreeing on thresholds for individual versus joint decision-making. This approach maintains trust while preserving reasonable financial autonomy. Here's something practical you can implement. Have an honest conversation with your spouse about financial goals and establish clear guidelines about investment amounts that require discussion versus those you can make independently. For example, you might agree that investments under $5,000 are individual decisions, while larger amounts require consultation. The mindset shift needed is understanding that transparency typically strengthens rather than threatens relationships when handled respectfully. Financial autonomy and relationship trust can coexist through clear communication rather than secrecy. Critical relationship consideration. If you feel compelled to hide financial activities from your spouse, this typically indicates either involvement in questionable investments or underlying relationship communication issues that need addressing. Healthy relationships can accommodate individual financial interests when handled with transparency and respect. Financial decisions affect family security, so maintaining trust through open communication usually produces better outcomes than secrecy, which can damage relationships regardless of investment performance. Principle 5. Understanding partnership limitations and risks. Partnership investing often creates confusion about appropriate risk levels, leading people to either invest money they can't afford to lose or become so risk-averse that they miss legitimate opportunities. You might feel tempted to use emergency funds or retirement savings for partnership investments that promise higher returns. Or conversely, you might avoid all partnership opportunities due to fear of any potential losses. This risk management confusion often leads to either financial ruin from investing essential money in risky partnerships, or missed opportunities from excessive conservatism that prevents participation in legitimate wealth-building strategies. Let me tell you about two investors who approached partnership risks completely differently. The blind optimist assumed that all properly researched partnerships would succeed and invested money he needed for essential expenses and emergencies. When some partnerships underperformed or failed, he faced serious financial hardship because he had risked money he couldn't afford to lose. The informed investor understood that even legitimate partnerships carry substantial risks and only invested disposable income that wouldn't affect his financial security if lost completely. He diversified across multiple partnerships and investment types, rather than concentrating wealth in any single opportunity. The solution involves establishing clear risk parameters before evaluating any partnership opportunity, including maximum investment amounts based on disposable income and diversification requirements that prevent over-concentration in partnerships. Here's something essential you can implement. Before considering partnership investments, determine the maximum amount you could lose without affecting your essential financial security. Only invest money that exceeds your emergency fund, retirement savings, and other essential financial goals. Consider partnerships as one component of a diversified investment strategy rather than a primary wealth-building approach. The mindset shift needed is understanding that partnership investing should enhance rather than replace traditional investment strategies. Even well-researched partnerships can fail due to market conditions, management issues, or economic factors beyond anyone's control. Critical risk awareness. Partnership investments typically involve higher risk than diversified index funds or bonds, and many partnerships fail even when properly structured and managed. Real estate partnerships face property market risks, business partnerships depend on management competence, and all partnerships involve liquidity constraints that can prevent quick access to invested capital. Never invest emergency funds, retirement savings, or money needed for essential expenses in partnership opportunities, regardless of how promising they appear. Principle 6. Tax implications and regulatory requirements. Partnership investments create complex tax implications and legal requirements that many people underestimate or ignore, potentially leading to serious problems with tax authorities or regulatory agencies. You might assume that partnership income is simple to report, or that the partnership entity handles all legal compliance, but individual partners often have significant reporting obligations and tax liabilities that require proper documentation and professional guidance. Failing to understand or comply with partnership tax and legal requirements can result in penalties, audits, or legal problems that cost more than any investment returns you might earn from the partnership. Let me tell you about two investors who approached legal compliance differently. The rule ignoramus assumed that partnership investments were simple and that he could handle tax reporting himself without understanding the complexities involved. He failed to maintain proper records, misreported partnership income, and eventually faced tax penalties that exceeded his investment gains. The compliant investor recognized that partnership investments involve complex legal and tax implications requiring professional guidance. She maintained detailed records, worked with qualified tax professionals, and ensured proper compliance with all reporting requirements from the beginning of her partnership involvement. The solution involves understanding that partnership investments typically require professional legal and tax guidance, proper record keeping, and ongoing compliance with regulatory requirements that vary based on partnership structure and investment amounts. Here's something essential you can implement. Before entering any partnership investment, Consult with a qualified tax professional who understands partnership taxation and maintain detailed records of all partnership documents, income distributions, and tax reporting. Budget for professional guidance as part of your investment costs rather than trying to handle complex compliance issues yourself. The mindset shift needed is viewing legal compliance as investment protection rather than an unnecessary expense. Proper legal and tax handling protects your investment returns and prevents costly problems with authorities. Critical compliance awareness. Partnership investments often involve K-1 tax forms, potential passive activity limitations, and complex reporting requirements that differ significantly from simple investment income. State and federal regulations may apply differently to various partnership structures, and international partnerships involve additional complexity. Professional guidance typically costs less than the penalties and problems that result from improper compliance. Consider legal and tax advisory costs as essential expenses for partnership investing rather than optional services, especially for investments exceeding $10,000 or involving complex structures. Principle 7. Understanding wealth building limitations. Pursuing partnership investments with unrealistic expectations about timelines and returns often leads to poor decision-making, financial losses, or dangerous risk-taking that can destroy your financial security. You might believe that the right partnership will solve your financial problems quickly or provide substantial passive income within a few years. But these expectations can lead you to invest money you can't afford to lose or ignore warning signs about questionable opportunities. Unrealistic partnership expectations often cause people to chase increasingly risky schemes, invest essential money, or abandon proven wealth-building strategies in favor of partnerships that promise but rarely deliver dramatic financial transformation. Let me tell you about two people who approached partnership investing with different expectations. The get-rich-quick dreamer believed that partnership investing would provide rapid wealth accumulation and financial freedom within a few years. He invested aggressively, ignored risks, and continuously searched for partnerships promising higher returns when initial investments didn't meet his timeline expectations. The patient builder understood that legitimate partnership investing requires substantial initial capital, involves significant risks, including total loss, and typically produces modest returns over many years rather than dramatic wealth creation. She treated partnerships as one small component of a diversified long-term investment strategy rather than a primary wealth-building approach. The solution involves accepting that most people won't build substantial wealth through partnership investing due to capital requirements, risk factors, and the reality that many partnerships fail regardless of management quality or market research. Here's something critical you should understand. Legitimate partnership opportunities typically require $25,000 minimum investments, involve substantial risks, including total loss, and may not generate any income for years. Most people lack both the disposable capital and risk tolerance for meaningful partnership investing. The mindset shift needed is understanding that partnership investing is typically available only to people who already have substantial wealth, not a path for building wealth from modest means. Most partnership schemes targeting people with limited capital are fraudulent. Critical reality check. If you're looking to partnership investing as a solution to financial problems or a way to build wealth without substantial existing capital, you're likely to encounter either fraudulent schemes or inappropriate risk-taking that could worsen your financial situation. Focus on proven wealth-building strategies like emergency funds, debt reduction, and diversified index fund investing before considering partnerships that require capital most people don't have. These 7 principles reveal that legitimate partnership investing requires substantial capital, transparency, and realistic expectations, rather than the secrecy and quick wealth promises often associated with silent partner schemes. Most people lack both the disposable capital and risk tolerance for meaningful partnership investing, as legitimate opportunities typically require $25,000 plus minimums and involve significant risks, including total loss. Financial secrecy typically damages rather than protects relationships, and most partnership schemes promoting secrecy are either fraudulent or inappropriate. Individual circumstances vary dramatically regarding investment capacity, and partnership investing should enhance, rather than replace, traditional wealth-building strategies like emergency funds and diversified index funds. The critical insight is that partnership investing is typically available only to people who already have substantial wealth, not a path for building wealth from modest means. Focus on proven strategies before considering partnerships that require capital most people don't have. What questions do you have about legitimate partnership investing with proper transparency and realistic expectations? Share your concerns below and subscribe for honest investment education that prioritizes both financial security and relationship health over promotional promises.